Hello and welcome everyone in another episode of Researcher Celebrity. Today we have Dr. Smita Jain with us. A brief introduction about Dr. Smita. She has done her bachelor's in life sciences from Banaras Hindu University, master's in biotechnology from Maharaji Sayaji Rao University of Baroda, and PhD in cancer biology from Indian Institute of Sciences IISc Bangalore. Then in different roles throughout academia, CROs, incubation centers, high-end platforms. She has worked in different roles, starting from scientist to leadership, and currently she is advisor of fundraising and donor relationship at National Center for Biological Sciences, Bangalore, also known as NCBS. With this brief introduction, we'll say thank you so much, ma'am, for taking time out for this conversation.
Thank you so much, Raja, if I can call you so. Thank you so much for having me here. It's a real pleasure, and I look forward to our conversation today.
Thanks for your kind words, ma'am. We always start these conversations that how and when you decided to become a researcher.
Aha, that's a very interesting question. Um, okay, when and how did I decide to become a researcher? So this goes the whole story goes long back when I was, let's say, in my primary school. And two people played a very key role in shaping this whole thought process of critically looking at anything and everything around me. And these were definitely my father, who's a researcher himself. Um, he would always tell us to question, or he would always kind of tell us stories about nature, about biology, about different kinds of living beings present around us. A lot of intricate things about biology, how biological processes work, and that kind of really triggered that interest in me in the subject of biology. That was one. Um, then he would also tell us a lot of stories around scientists, how they developed their lives. That was second. And the third point was my my science teacher in primary school who taught us from grade 3 to grade 5. And she was one who taught science in a very interesting and hands-on manner in our class. It was a government school, not too much of facilities available, but still she ensured that we as kids continue to do small little experiments that we could. I still very distinctly remember the first time we soaked seeds and let them germinate in the class. That was so amazing. The day the first set of leaves appeared, we were elated. We were really elated. Uh, we even did we saw how caterpillars transform into butterflies in the class. That was another wonderful moment for the entire class. And I guess that those were few things that really instilled the whole curiosity and interest in the field of science. And then later on, definitely I took science. I continued enjoying my classes, or if you can call so, with my father, wherein he continued teaching me the intricacies of biology. He being a researcher, he being a biologist, and then uh, during college is when I again found some really wonderful teachers during my undergrad at Banaras Hindu University. I found some really amazing best teachers who enforce this entire love for science, and more so for biology, if I can call it. Um, Also, what happened during my second year was I got a chance to come to IIC for an internship as part of a national a fellowship program, and I spent 2 months at IIC campus. That further strengthened my belief that yes, this is where I want to be. This is the campus where I want to do my PhD if ever I do so, and yes, so the whole stimulating environment was IIC of IIC was what further cemented my belief of pursuing research. So I hope, Raja, that I answered your question about when and how I decided to be a researcher.
Absolutely. And this shows two important roles for all the researchers which we have had these conversations: the role of mentors, being it father or the teachers, and then the role of internship, where you actually taste it, the environment. Because when you are doing small experiments, which is very, commending, that the teacher is giving this idea that if you do something hands on, everyone sees the plants are germinating. But when you soak a seed and you do it, the pleasure it gives and the understanding, it's for lifelong also. And the second point, when you mentioned about caterpillar turning into butterflies, metamorphosis being one of the most complex system
Love
in
it.
biology, and if you do it with a little bit of explanation, theoretical, it is easily memorable, and then it is they going to be staying with you for a long time. And I think that's
Exactly.
what we do talk about in these conversations. And once you have spent some time in Indian Institute of Sciences, that is when you're like, okay, if I have to do PhD, I'll will do it there. So let's
Exactly.
start the journey from when you were completing your master's and looking for PhD opportunities. What was that process which you followed?
Okay. So, one thing I would want to say that I was definitely a very, very meritorious student throughout my schooling and college. And so my basics were definitely strong. And I was, as I said, I was very clear that if I ever do my PhD, it's going to be from IIC. I was very, very clear. So I kind of did my homework to understand that what it takes to get in IIC. Uh, and believe me, I did not fill in any other forms in my final year of master's. That IIC was the only form that I filled in. I prepped really, really hard, ensured that I'm good with my basics, and definitely the training at Baroda, at MSU Baroda, when we were doing our master's biotechnology course, was very intense, extremely intense. So we had like 2 years of dissertation. We had our regular practicals, presentations, review papers, theory. So that kind of gave us very, very solid grounding understanding of the subject. So that bit was I was very, very confident of that I can like answer questions. And 2 years of research work during master's program was what further helped in a lot of questions that are posed during the interview at IIC. So yes, I guess, and with that mindset that yes, I was not overconfident. I was confident that yes, I would clear it. But yes, I didn't know that in case if I don't clear it, what am I going to do? So when I reached Bangalore for my interview, that is when I kind of thought that I should have had a plan B in hand. Because this question was posed by few others that what if you don't get through? And that's when I kind of felt that, yes, this is kind of a mistake that I never planned my plan B. And then I thought over it, and I remember I visited NCBS at that time, met Jitu, with him because his work was something that really, really was of kind of close interest. Um, he was working on membranes, and I thought that'll be an interesting lab to work. And Jitu was fine with the idea of having me as a project assistant in his lab in case if I don't get through IIC interviews. So that's at the very last minute I made my plan B. I'm not justifying that, but that's the reality. And that's what it was. But the end result was that, yes, I got through microbiology and cell biology department at IAC for my PhD.
This is something which we can say for all the audience, that there are always pros and cons. And the biggest thing which play a crucial role here is like how confident you are about the process. As Dr. Smita did only one application, that shows the commitment and the groundwork which you have to do. If you have done your homework, then probably you don't have to go for the plan B. And if in this process, if I can ask you, the role of that internship which you already spent some time in ISC, how important was that? Because you know what kind of questions will be, what will be the procedure, if there is a PhD interview goes on, the panel, all of that information, which if someone who has not done an internship in there might not be very well versed with.
Uh, so Raja, here I would slightly differ as an intern who's like, in a second year undergrad. I don't think gets to know about the PhD process at IIC. But what definitely one gets to know is the lab culture, the overall culture, which for a person like me was very, very important. I kind of always needed a very creative, a very stimulating, uh, aesthetic environment around me for me to function. And I found that at IIC. I knew that this is the place where I will be myself. And that was always very, very important for me. More than the admission process, I had no clue when I was doing my internship that what the admission process looks like. But yes, I knew that my basics have to be very strong. I have to be very, very clear about my project work that I've done. There can be questions. There can be questions around learnings, the shortcomings, the hiccups, the challenges that I face. So I was clear around each of those points.
Mhm.
And I was prepared with the answers for those questions. Um, but the overall sentiment was that IIC interview is going to be tough. The panels are not very easy to crack through. But I guess the whole time we spent at MSU Baroda prepped us really, really well because it was a very rigorous course at Baroda. Um, we would face interviews, we would face reviews, we would face presentations where we would be grilled extensively. So I was kind of prepared to face the IIC interview panel as well, just because of the foundation that was laid at Baroda.
Wonderful. So now let's say the journey of PhD starts. You got the admission letter. You start those first days with brilliant expectations of PhD. How did that life went for you in ISC?
Interesting. So I did my internship in a lab which was extremely, extremely well funded, well equipped, and I had no idea what an empty lab looks like. Everything was there in the lab where I was doing my PhD. This was Professor M.R.S. Rao's lab at Department of Biochemistry. The seniors were wonderful, very, very supportive. They really took care of me as a younger sibling, if I can call it. Someone coming from Benares all the way to Bangalore, who was not very well versed with English at that point in time. Uh, and definitely it was first time away from home, so I had some really fond memories of the place when I landed at IIC second time for my PhD. Right, this was in 1999, and I was told that I'll be joining Professor Dr. Kumar Vel Somsundaram's lab, and I go to the lab, and sir was there, but this was an empty lab, absolutely nothing. A new lab, there was a fridge, there was a telephone, and this was really hilarious. And I enter, he welcomed, and he says that we started talking, and he's like, Smita, this is a fridge. And I'm like, yes, I know this is a fridge. And he said that, well, this fridge has all the reagents that you need to start your experiments with. I'm like, okay, but where do I work? So then he's like, don't worry, we have figured out, we will set it up. But because he was a new faculty, he had just joined, but he's like, we have our neighboring lab and the other labs who are going to support us, and you can just freely use it. That was great. I would say that the neighboring lab and all the other labs, the seniors, the other faculties were amazingly supportive, but it came with its own challenges because I started working with yeast, which is a which can easily contaminate your bacterial cultures as well. So I was given a time slot between 12 midnight to 5 a.m. in the morning in the neighboring lab. I was told because I had to do my EASE2 hybrid system work. And that's how the next 6 months to 8 months went. So I would stay up whole night, all alone in the lab, in the neighboring lab working. But the good thing, and now I see it, maybe at that point I was a little dejected, but now when I see that whole thing gave us the opportunity, not just me, but my lab mate and others, the opportunity to kind of collaborate, learn teamwork, be very, very patient. Uh, and the biggest lesson was we learned how to set up a lab, how to, like, the whole administrative process that goes behind buying equipments to reagents to anything and everything. You won't even believe we would even clean up the lab, we would even clean up our glasswares. And the best was that Kumar himself would work along with us in the lab. So that was a very, very different time, which taught us a lot of good life lessons, if I can call it. And slowly, within a year, we built the lab. Any small little achievement would be celebrated. Sir would take us out for dinners, for tea, coffee, whatever you call it. But it was a really, really beautiful time at IIC. So
We talked
I
about
hope,
all the great time. Yeah. So
yes,
you represented a great time, team effort, learning environment, and everything. How about the challenges of a research scholar during the PhD? At some point of time, there are a good amount of the percentage of students where they think about quitting PhD. Anything like that similar happen to you or your peers, which you have seen?
for sure, yes, it happened. And I would not say only positive things about PhD. Definitely, everyone faces challenges. When your experiments repeatedly fail, you feel like, well, this is the end of it. You can't continue. When you have an argument with your supervisor, you feel this is the end of it. You can't continue. Uh, Interestingly, I also got married during my PhD. I had a baby during my PhD. So that added another dimension to the whole work pressure towards the end when you're finishing. There were challenges with my batchmates in their own labs, with their own supervisors. But I would say that how we could sail through that entire process was just because our entire batch was very, very close knit. Almost every single night, post we would finish our work, we would meet, go to the tea board or coffee board at IIC, just sit there for like half an hour to an hour, talk about the day, let everything go out, and then go sleep and start afresh. And I guess that's where the batch and the friends played a very important role. And I, as an individual, would also go do running or jogging or Zumba during my PhD times. So that was another thing that helped me stay very sane and healthy during the PhD period. I would just put on my music, go for a run. So that, and that became my way of just dissipating my tensions, if at all they were building up in my system. Um, so that's how we kind of navigated that those challenging times. And the other was, I feel, at least our supervisor was open to discussions, and we could just go and talk to him about many things, if at all there were differences or there were challenges or there were issues we were facing with other lab members, or in terms of using their equipments or reagents or whatever. So we could just go and very openly talk to him. And that also helped sail through those challenges.
Having this clear, transparent conversations with supervisor obviously is the key for successful PhD, but also the point which you mentioned, and I believe all the audience can get benefited, having those some kind of physical activity, because in sometimes you are just in your lab for whole day, you don't have enough chance to do anything, and that does activate so many different pathways and helps you to rejuvenate. Having that
Yes.
flushing system, as mentioned, every night, if you can sit with your peers, friends, flush it out, that all the negativity of that those days go out, and the next day you start fresh instead of building it up, because that is the problem where all the burnouts happens, and that is a process. The burnout do not happen in a day. It is a process. You're building it up and you're not letting it finishing it up.
And
And that
maybe, Raja, if I can just add one more point here. During
Mhm.
our times, we were lucky. Why I say lucky? Because the smartphones were not there with
Burnout.
us. That was another very important things that helped us stay very connected with other human beings, other individuals with whom we could have face-to-face conversations, or heart-to-heart conversations. Today's world, with everyone having their smartphones in their hands, that social connect has gone, dissipated, and that was another added advantage of our times.
Absolutely. And I think that is one part. And on top of that, it's like there are different things which also negatively impact the their mental health also, because they want to be in
Exactly.
limelight and whatnot all. But talking of the grad life, and specifically this is for all researchers globally, you mentioned that when you joined about the English as a language. Okay, in these conversations it came out multiple times, and even when we start having these initiation of conversations for having our researcher celebrities to appear on this series, so many of them from all around the world where the English is not the first language. Based on your experience, what you can share with all the researchers at different stages in their career and life, how they should navigate it.
It's a tough question for me to answer, but English being a common language, fortunately, unfortunately, we can't do away with it. That's one common language that connects. And today, it being a global word, we need to connect, right? If you have to succeed in the word of science, you need to read, you need to connect, even with all kinds of technologies available where you can translate. Still, there has to be a medium to converse with each other. So, some bit of English definitely is required. But I also feel that one should not pay too much attention in terms of, especially when you're starting up at the initial stages of your career, that you are not good at English. I've always been very, very upfront that I didn't know how to speak in English till the day I landed at IIC, because we would never converse. I was really good in writing. Uh, it was I could express myself, my answers, my thoughts around my subject really, really well. But when it came to having day-to-day conversations in English, I just didn't know how to do that. First 1 week at IIC in the lab, I was mostly silent. I was mostly silent. But that's where the seniors played a very key role. They kind of helped me sail through it. They didn't made fun of me, right? And that's where I built up my confidence and I could start. But then one more thing I would add here, during my master's, when I gave my first presentation on the stage in front of the class and teachers, after like third or fourth slide, I froze. And it was not just me, the couple of other colleagues just froze. They couldn't go further because again, it was English. It's not that I didn't know the content of my presentation. It was like, presentation in front of an audience. Again, the friends came handy at that point, and we decided that we are going to start rehearsing our presentations before we go up on the stage, and that helped. That just completely changed. So instead of worrying about language, I feel one has to just invest time and effort to ensure that you kind of start gathering that confidence level that you can converse. Slowly and steadily things happen. You kind of become good at that. But for sure, till today, I feel many times you kind of think in your own local or regional, or your mother tongue, because that's how you've grown up, right? And there's nothing wrong in it. It's absolutely fine to think, to share ideas in your own mother tongue. But yes, if you want to kind of build connections with a global audience, you have to learn a language that connects us all, and which is English.
Absolutely. And having said that, now we know that as a scientist, as a researcher, you might be fantastic, meticulous in setting up experiments with the hypothesis, with the results, and everything is wonderful. But if you cannot communicate that or publish it or present in those meetings, we say that every unreported, or we say every unpublished experiment never happened, because
Right.
world is not aware of that. And if you choose to be on this path, one thing which researchers are different in a way that they try to come up with the solution instead of just staring at the problem and spending their time and energy for nothing. So if you are a researcher, and this is for all the youngsters, if you think you want to do it, English probably is not your first language. Nothing can stop you if you know what you want to do, if you are committed to do whatever it takes. And this is one of the part. Second point, also, I would like to ask, when you mentioned about getting married in during your PhD, having the child, nobody talks about when a boy goes through that challenge. Like, it is the same. It's not like the boys are not spending the time, but whenever it comes, and now, especially in India and also at global scale, when people are talking about women in science, how different that is, and why we should break that also, that there should not be gender biased during for all of these important life events.
Ah, it's a topic in itself to have a conversation. But I feel childbirth is a biological process, right? It's women who kind of nurture the child for 9 months, and then bring the child to this world. So definitely there is a gender bias, if I can call it, between men and women with this respect. But yes, post a baby is born, the father would equally want to spend time with the baby. The father also, it's a huge change in the life of that individual, be it mother or the father. But again, Raja, the thing is that caregiving, most of the nurturing of that little one comes to the mother, because the mother's feeding the baby, and the way a baby needs to be taken care. So first 6 months of my life, my child would not sleep whole night. And I remember that I kind of stayed up almost for first 6 months after giving birth to my first baby. But I started going back to the lab after 2.5 months. It was definitely extremely, extremely challenging. But I also feel that as a mother, you somewhere draw the energy because you love both. You love your baby equally, you love your PhD equally, right? You love your work at the same time. But I very strongly feel that there has to be a balance between this whole process of bringing a child to this world and kind of giving that time definitely has to be shared equally between the father and the mother. Uh, but all said and done, with all due respect, I guess there are more demands that come to a mother, to a woman, when it comes to childbirth. And that's because that's how biology is, that's how biology works, right? So, and maybe that's the reason why you see more discussions around women in science. Uh, and also, I'll tell you with my own experience, I feel that as the child grows, the demands of the child, and as your career is progressing, they both kind of happen at the same time point, and there are multiple clashes that happen. So it's not very easy, but if there is a balance between the partners, and also if the kids are made aware of the roles and responsibilities early on as they are growing up, things become little easier. But I would not say things become completely easy. Challenges are there at every stage if you are a parent.
Sure. And I think that's where the role of balancing, as you mentioned, and which we see in your journey post your PhD. So now let's say post PhD, when you served in different roles, be in academia, be at a clinical research organization, leadership roles at bioscience, in India Bioscience, how can you help our audience to navigate through that not so easy a way of, taking different roles in those organizations?
Wow, that is something that's one loaded question, if I can call it, Raja. But let me try to summarize as best I can. Uh, so one thing at the very start I would want to say is that I was very clear that my kids and my career are my priorities, and I have to balance it. And honestly, for me as an individual, my kids have been my priority over my career. That's my personal choice. And I was very, very clear about it. Post PhD, definitely there were two options. Either I could have gone for a postdoc, or I could have started my professional journey. Uh, but one thing I was very clear that I would not continue in research work because I realized that kind of individual I am, the kind of things I would enjoy, I felt that kind of staying in a research career is not going to fulfill those desires. And that's why I was clear that I would not continue in academia. And that thus I didn't never went for a postdoc. So that bit was very clear. But now what I wanted to do was not clear at all to me. Definitely first couple of years I spent in at Rheometrics and then symbiosis in a lab setting. And I figured out that working in a lab is again not something which is giving me the kind of motivation that I was looking for. By that time, I also had my second baby. There were a series of health challenges, and that's when I took 2 years of 2 years off from work. And I just spent time with my kids, with my family, and with myself. And it's not that I was completely away. I stayed connected with my network. I continued doing some bit of things here and there. But that 2 years of cooling off period, if I can call it, kind of helped me figure out that what I want to do. One thing again became very clear in my head, that research or a lab work is not where I want to be. I want to be in a role which is more outgoing, outfacing. And you can call it my luck, but that's when C Camp was just starting up. I met few senior leadership folks at C Camp and felt that that's the place. They were looking for someone with a PhD degree who can join their business development team. And that's when I joined C Camp. And at C Camp, I was their fifth employee. I was involved again in setting up C Camp from scratch. And that's where I realized that working for research community from outside, because that's what I was doing at CCAMP, is something I really, really enjoy. I really enjoyed meeting new people, having conversations with them around the work they were doing, how CCAMP can help them with its high-end facilities, understanding their challenges, bringing it back, meeting new people, traveling. That's where I realized that this is what I am really, really enjoying. So I worked with CCAM for about 5 years. Later at India Bioscience, when I joined in 2016 in a leadership role, India Bioscience being a platform that helps network and mentor young researchers. It's one of its kind platform funded by Government of India, Department of Biotechnology, Government of India. I kind of got to meet a very vast network of young researchers to senior leaders to policymakers to funders during my stint at India Bioscience. And that is where I kind of fell in love, if I can again call it that way. I fell in love with my role, where I was again involved in empowering the research community from outside. Right? So that's been my journey. 5 years, 5.5 years at India Bioscience were like my best career stint, if I can call it. Uh, Learned a lot, worked with with a really wonderful team, a set of professionals, folks. All of us are still in touch with each other. This was one group that truly knew the meaning of teamwork and collaboration, and we worked extensively towards one common goal of empowering the research community, biological science research community in India. Right? We started a lot of new programs based on the inputs we would get from the community, uh, built a very strong knit community over those 5.5 years. India Bioscience is still doing wonderful work. And I'm sure, many of the audience would have seen this program, have visited the website, has got some enormous amount of resources for researchers. So that was one beautiful period. But yes, over 5.5 years, I also started feeling that my career, with all the positive reinforcements and inputs coming in, I felt that, my learning somewhere is getting stagnated. And that's when I decided to move. Actually, it was not my decision. It was a call from Cactus Communications. Very different role I was being offered, and I felt that there'll be a lot of new learning if I join a new role. It was a corporate, very different from what I was doing. But again, being the kind of person I am, I was ready to, get into a new role, new challenge, new learning. And that's how I joined Cactus Communications, worked there for about 4 years, and then decided to kind of move more into a consultancy role. And today I work at NCBS as an advisor for fundraising. Again, a very different role, a role that is demanding, that's challenging, and something very, very new. So that's been my career journey. I know it's been very varied, it's been very different, but At each step, one thing I've realized that has kept me going, that has kept me motivated is each role has given me the opportunity to empower the research community. And that I realized is the purpose of my life.
Well said and greatly explained, man. Especially when you should know what you love the most is more important thing than anything else. And on a closing note, if we can have this one slide and you can tell a little bit more about the trait acquired.
Yeah. Thank you for showing this up, Raja. I guess these are some of the points. Uh, Honestly, not these many points. I've given a lot of career talks, and most when I started giving these talks, it was like three C's. But then over time, I realized that it's not just three C's, but many C's that you kind of acquire during your career journey. And that's what I've tried to sum it up in this slide. Uh, and this holds true for anyone and everyone across any professional journey, honestly speaking, is what I feel. So let me go through this very quickly. Definitely, clarity of boundaries and purpose in life is what helps you stay motivated and on the right track. Critical thinking, as I said at the very start, you don't just take things as it is, but you kind of look at them in a very critical way. You question them, and that's what a researcher is all about. That's what scientific training is all about. Commitment, commitment to make a difference, because that's when you do your best. Only when you're completely committed towards what you're supposed to be doing. Confidence to move ahead always. That's another trait that helps you continue to move forward and upwards. Uh, and I guess that's what I built over time. Challenge the system when required. Don't just stay silent. And that has also helped me. Challenge the system is something I've learned from my mentor, one of my mentors. And that's what I figured out, that staying silent doesn't help. You raise your voice in a positive, constructive manner, and things change for the good. Uh, Courage to face difficult situations, because no one on this earth ever will continue to kind of glide through best of times. There will be challenges always. So never lose that courage. You will sail past that difficult situation if you have courage. Communication skills. We have spoken about communication skill in the past during our conversation early today, but that's another thing I can't emphasize enough, that how important it is to build that skill over time. Um, then curiosity to know unknown, always remain a learner, continue to be a learner, because that's what again gives you that zeal to move forward. Just to let the audience know, I'm starting a new course sometime in July. I'm not spelling it out what course, but I'm starting a new course in July. Um, Remain carefree, because tensions don't help. Just remain carefree, not always, definitely when you're doing something important. I would not say that stay carefree, but yes, it's one life and one should really enjoy. Remain a companion, whosoever, your partner, your friends, your colleagues, other fellow beings, fellow human beings. Remain empathetic and stay like a companion, because that contentment really gives a very different feel and energy to your own system. Um, be candid and critical wherever needed. Again, in a constructive manner. Um, always remain caring and compassionate, because the world we are living today really requires human beings to be very caring and compassionate. So I guess these are some of the traits that I have acquired. Maybe some were innate, some were nurtured, some were acquired as I moved ahead in my career journey. And I thought I'll share with all of you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And it was wonderful for sure. And having said this conversation, during the conversation, we discussed that how important it is that you figure out the things you like and also the things you do not like, because that helps you clear your future directions. And that's when, if you just keep following your heart, that what you enjoy the most and you keep doing it, that makes you further successful in no matter which field you are going, because you like it so much that you put that extra. Whereas if there are two people who, one is just doing it as a job and one is passionate about it, the one who's passionate will put more efforts into it. If there are challenges, the same challenges in front of them, the one will obviously pass with flying colors who is passionate about it. Whereas the one who's just going there to do 9 to 5 job probably will just hitting their head against the wall all over and over until someone save them from that misery. That was wonderful.
Exactly.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And we can say to all of our audience that if you want to write to Dr. Smita, you can write to her. If you want STEM for Science Society to help you to put in touch with our researcher celebrities, we are there to help you also. All we want from you is, if research makes you happy, we are there to help you with our limited resources, whatever we have, and our resources are our researcher celebrities. With this, thank you so much, Dr. Smith. It was wonderful having this conversation with you.
Thank you so much, Raja. I too really, really enjoyed this conversation, and all the best to everyone who's watching or who's going to watch this video. So thank you, and my best wishes to everyone.
Thank you, ma'am. To all the audience, we'll say stay tuned for another episode of Researchers Celebrities.